What is happening, everybody? We have a 12-game NBA slate on Monday, and I'm about to be breaking down everything that you need to know to make some money on FanDuel and DraftKings today. As you guys are watching this video, if you could do me a favor, like, follow, subscribe. That's stuff that really helps us to just keep the content we have around here free, and it only takes a half second of your time. So if you could do that, it is very much appreciated. And also, I waited a little bit longer to get this video out because we have a 12-game slate on Monday. It's also one where we're getting to a point of the season, we're seeing more players on the injury report. So I'm trying to balance like getting this out early with also how do I have the most injury information possible. So like around 1:30 Eastern time, we get that big injury report dump. That's generally where I'm going to be recording these for the bigger slates. And then I'll still be doing it earlier for smaller slates. A lot of you probably don't care about that, but just wanted to give you some context on that in case you're wondering the release time you could expect some of these videos, but already got these lineups built out for DraftKings and simulated. Going to do it for FanDuel as well right after this in the same video. And let's get into it. Starting with DraftKings, my number one overall best projected lineup. It is Tyler Hero, DeJounte Murray, Dylan Brooks, Draymond Green, Goga Bitadze, Dyson Daniels, DeMar DeRozan, and Zach Collins. So there are a number of value options there that stand out for different reasons. Bitadze still not quite priced up enough. And he's somebody who's going to come up when we talk about FanDuel, and DraftKings is a really good value play today. But if you look at the Magic last game, Wendell Carter Jr. out dealing with a broken finger. He's going to have surgery. Bitadze started at center. Goga's a really good fantasy producer. Most big men are good fantasy producers. And as long as he's going to start, appears he's going to play extended minutes. Goga, one of the best value plays on the slate. Dyson Daniels, he is benefiting from the absence of CJ McCollum. McCollum is also well, I don't know if injured is the right word, but he has a collapsed lung. Is that sick or injured or something in between? Either way, we're also going to see CJ McCollum out for an extended period of time. So those are a couple of the core value plays for the slate. If we go ahead now and look at the exposures here, we're doing our thing where we go position by position to see who stands out the most at each spot, see who we are over and underweight to at each position, starting with point guard, DeJounte Murray, Jalen Suggs, Tyrese Halliburton. These are the core guys I have here with point guard eligibility, and a couple of these guys are going to be coming up at shooting guard as well, north of 40% exposure to all of them, and then underweight to the field here on Fred VanVleet as well as Jordan Clarkson. If we go ahead and look at the core guys for shooting guard, a couple of them we already know who they're going to end up being. Shooting guard, DeJounte Murray, Dylan Brooks, Jalen Suggs, not quite Bogdanovich, close to 20%. I usually try to call the guys who are 20+% on the core plays of the position, but still 18% Bogdanovich. Haven't really talked about him at all this year or either of the Bogdanoviches, but he's the next man up here. But Dylan Brooks is the one who has shooting guard eligibility that we did not see at point guard. Players I'm underweight to here, underweight to Malachi Branham, underweight to Brandon Ingram, underweight to Jordan Clarkson, and THT, Talen Horton-Tucker. Now, the Branham one, I do want to keep an eye out on the Spurs injury report. We know that Devin Vassell is already out, but something else as well. Tail end of a back-to-back. This is the first back-to-back the Spurs have played this year. I don't know what that's going to mean for rest. I wouldn't be stunned if we find out in a couple hours that Wemby won't play today, but just kind of a guess. We'll see what the injury report brings later on in the day. Small forward, Dylan Brooks, the only one I have north of 20% exposure to at the small forward spot. Bogdanovich also here, Azor Thompson, Kyle Anderson, Franz Wagner, some other players north of 10% in my lineups. And then underweight here to Brandon Ingram, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Michael Porter Jr. And yeah, the Bulls have just been a disaster to open up the season so far. And not getting to a ton of either LaVine or DeRozan relative to the field on my first run here. Power forwards, we're getting the most of Draymond Green and Naz Reid. Those are the power forwards we have the most of. And then coming in underweight to the field on Jalen Johnson, who's looking popular again at 22% owned. Jalen Johnson's role has been ever-changing for the Hawks. Starts the year coming off the bench, then he's starting, then he's off the bench, now he's starting again. So him and Sadiq Bey have kind of been tagging in and out of that starting lineup, which is one of the reasons right now, just that overall variance has getting underweight to the field on him. So we'll need a little more information on what his role is going to be later on in the night. And then also underweight to the field on Jabari Smith Jr., Torrey Craig, and then a DeMar DeRozan once again. If we go ahead and look at the centers that we're getting to, and here he is, Goga Bitadze. In over half of my lineups, most rostered player in my first run of the entire DraftKings slate. And yeah, I mean, he looks fantastic. Cheap price point, project for nearly 30 fantasy points for us. Batadze is somebody to play. He's also projecting for a ton of ownership, 43.7% ownership. So tournaments, he looks good. Cash games, must play Goga for tonight. Draymond Green, Miles Turner, Naz Reid, and Nikola Jokic, the other centers that I have north of 20% exposure to. Zach Collins is pretty close. He's in 19.3% of lines. If Wemby does end up resting, Collins will probably be somebody end up with like 30 to 40% of. Underweight to the field at the center spot. Nothing real crazy, but am underweight to Onyeka Okongwu, only getting him into 2% of my top 150 lineups when he's projected for nearly 10% ownership. So that's the rundown of DraftKings, some of the core plays there. So now I'll upload the FanDuel lineups that I've got built here, and we'll see what ends up looking good for FanDuel. FanDuel main, what's the payout for that? FanDuel main, I think it's 20% tonight. I'll double check though. Yes, 20%. So it is a $250,000 prize pool on FanDuel with 20% to first place. The $9 buy-in, the Monday NBA clutch, and a little bit tilting. I can't complain too much because I've run very well in NBA this year. But Saturday night, I came in fifth in the $9 on FanDuel with Terry Rozier. I was only a couple of points out of first place. I couldn't have won first because I was boxed out of it. The lineup that I think was in second also had Rozier. But I should have come in second on FanDuel if Terry Rozier didn't injure himself. But unfortunately, he did. So we'll see what ends up looking different on FanDuel relative to DraftKings. And also, if you guys are looking for information for the showdown slate today, I also put up a video in a similar format using the Sims tools for both DraftKings and FanDuel for the showdown contest. We got Chargers Jets tonight. But all right, let's favorite the top 150 FanDuel lineups. And number one overall projected lineup here, Tyrese Halliburton, Reggie Jackson. So Reggie Jackson looks way different across FanDuel and DraftKings. He is very, very cheap at FanDuel. Jamal Murray is out for the Nuggets, which makes Jokic a really good spend up. That's why he was our most rostered spend up on DraftKings. And I mean, that also is Jokic. He's always looking pretty good from a fantasy perspective. But Reggie Jackson is a very, very good value play on FanDuel today. Josh Giddey, DeAnthony Melton, DeMar DeRozan, Dylan Brooks, Victor Wembanyama, Zach Collins, and Goga Batadze rounding out the lineup. So we need a little more information on whether Wemby is in or out for tonight. Mentioned that before as well, but wanted to repeat that, especially because I do figure there are some people who might only be playing on FanDuel that kind of skip through the first part of the video and wait for me to talk about FanDuel. But Wemby, somebody who I think is a potential rest candidate today. Let's go ahead and look at the point guards. Point guard getting the most of Reggie Jackson. Mentioned him before. Josh Giddey, Tyrese Halliburton, DeJounte Murray, Cade Cunningham. Those are our core guys with point guard eligibility on FanDuel. And then underweight to Kobe White as well as Fred Van Vliet. And then Trey Jones here. And Trey Jones also somebody who, depending on what the injury situation ends up being for the Spurs, if they rest guys, then he could end up looking like a pretty decent play. But right now, he's somebody who I'm not really getting to at all. Shooting guards. Shooting guards, players I have the most exposure to here. Josh Giddey, DeJounte Murray, Cade Cunningham, Azur Thompson. Thompson's just been a monster rebounding the basketball so far this year. He stands out here for FanDuel. He's also been putting up some defensive stats, which makes his game a little bit more beneficial for FanDuel scoring than DK scoring. And then underweight to Zach LaVine, Klay Thompson, Talen Horton-Tucker, and Buddy Hield here at shooting guard. Small forwards. Four options at small forward on FanDuel, Bruce Brown and DeMar DeRozan. So kind of funny, right? On DraftKings, we're underweight to the field on DeRozan, but FanDuel, where he's cheaper, and the positionality is a little bit different here, we end up getting him into 24% of lineup. So actually, DeRozan, a core play on FanDuel, whereas I'm underweight to him on DraftKings. Underweight to the field to Jalen Johnson, and that was the case on DraftKings as well. Underweight to Jimmy Butler, underweight to Brandon Ingram. The Ingram one definitely scares me with McCollum being out. He is very, very expensive tonight, Brandon Ingram. So how much I get to him is going to depend a little bit on how many players end up getting ruled out, because it could be easier to get to Brandon Ingram if we get one or two more good value plays that open up. And also underweight to Michael Porter Jr. at small forward. Power forwards. Four options here for me: Victor Wembanyama, Draymond Green, Zach Collins. So don't want to reiterate the same talking point with Wemby again, but if he does end up resting today, Zach Collins, who I'm already getting in 45% of lineups, like he would just go to the moon in terms of exposure I would get to him on FanDuel. And then underweight to Zion, underweight to Jalen Johnson, Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, and Aaron Gordon at the power forward spot. Centers. We're getting to the most of Goga Batadze. Same deal as over on DraftKings. Goga starting at center for the Magic had a really big game for them on Saturday night, and he's going to project really well until his price point goes up or Wendell Carter Jr. comes back from injury, which is not in the near future since he just underwent surgery. So Goga, Collins, Draymond, Wemby, and Jokic are the core plays at center, and then coming in underweight to the field to Karl Anthony Towns, Domantas Sabonis, and Şengün here at the center spot. So that's a roundup of everything we're looking at for both FanDuel and DraftKings at first look. If you guys want more information for myself, check out NBA Live Before Lock tonight. I'm going to be on with Eric Lindquist breaking down the slate in full. We'll have more updated injury information and ownership as well, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time. And also, one more favor before you leave, if you haven't done it yet, like, follow, subscribe. I appreciate it. It's only going to take a half second of your time. Good luck tonight, guys, and I hope to see you later on Live Before Lock.